There is a solar company in New England right now quoting $17,500 installed for one 15 kilowatt-hour home battery. And on paper that looks normal because everybody knows home batteries are expensive. At least that's what everyone thought, because the battery hardware itself, real lithium iron phosphate rated for 6,000 charge cycles and more, now sells for as little as $230 per kilowatt hour. The gap between those two numbers is where homeowners get robbed. So today I'm counting down 12 home batteries rated for 3,000 cycles or better that are still worth every dollar in 2026, and I'll show you exactly where the markup hides. I'm Cal Watts, 35 years wiring homes, and I've read too many of these quotes across somebody's kitchen table. 3 years ago, a countdown like this would have looked very different. Back then, the federal government handed you 30% of a battery's costs back through the residential clean energy credit, and installers priced their quotes knowing Uncle Sam was softening the blow. That credit, Section 25D, died on December 31st, 2025. Gone for any homeowner who buys a battery outright in 2026. Meanwhile, tariffs on Chinese lithium cells pushed hardware prices up, and plenty of installers quietly switched to pitching leases because a leasing company can still capture a commercial tax credit that you can't. Nobody selling batteries leads with any of that. Therefore, the only thing protecting your wallet this year is the math, and the math says cycle life is where the value hides. A battery rated for 6,000 cycles at one full cycle a day runs past 16 years. Buy the cycles cheap, and a battery is one of the best purchases in your whole house. Buy them at installer markup, and you just funded somebody's boat. One more piece of grounding before we count. So the capacities mean something. A fridge and a chest freezer together burn around 2 kilowatt hours a day. Add the furnace blower, a sump pump, lights, and the internet, and a disciplined house gets through an outage day on 8 to 12 kilowatt hours, with the well pump needing surge power on top. Keep that yardstick in your pocket because it turns every battery in this list from a spec sheet into an answer. Let's count them down. Number 12. The Anker SOLIX F3800 plus power station. Now, my sharper viewers already know this thing is a battery with an inverter, not a generator, and you are right. So let's call it what it is. It's a 3.84 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery on wheels that puts out 6,000 watts of split phase power, meaning both 120 and 240 volt circuits, so it can genuinely run a well pump or a dryer where most rolling batteries cannot. Anker, spelled Anker, rates the cells at 3,000 cycles to 80% capacity. The floor for this whole list and the base F3800 series starts around $3,500. That's roughly $900 per kilowatt hour, the most expensive energy in this countdown, and the 5-year warranty is the shortest here too. But you are paying for something the wall-mounted units cannot offer. No electrician, no permit, no waiting. Plug it into a properly installed transfer switch inlet and your essential circuits are covered the same afternoon. For a homeowner in hurricane country who needs backup before the next storm season, that speed is worth real money. Just size it honestly. Under 4 kilowatt hours runs a fridge, freezer, and lights for a day, not a whole house for a week. Number 11. The Pytes 55, spelled Pytes. This is a 5.12 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate server rack battery, rated at better than 6,000 cycles, while holding over 80% of its capacity, with a 10-year warranty behind it. Server rack batteries look like stereo equipment, a black steel box that slides into a 19-inch rack in your garage or basement, and they are the quiet workhorses of the do-it-yourself solar world. Pytes has built a solid reputation in that crowd because the certifications are real and the battery talks to most of the popular inverter brands, Victron, SolArc, and the EG4 line among them. Street pricing typically lands in the $1,300 to $1,500 range, which puts you under $300 per kilowatt hour for a battery that will still be cycling when your roof needs replacing. The catch with every rack battery in this countdown is the same. It's a component, not a system. You still need an inverter, and hardwiring any of this into your panel is licensed electrician territory, but as a building block, this one earns its slot. Number 10. The EG4LLS. Same 5.12 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate format, over 6,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge, 10-year warranty, selling for about $1,350. So what does it add over the cheaper EG4 battery coming later in this list? A color touchscreen on the front panel that shows cell voltages, state of charge, current, and temperature without pulling out a phone or squinting at an inverter menu. That's it, roughly $100 for a screen. And here's the detail everyone misses when they laugh at that. When something acts up in year 6, the guy who can walk to his garage and read every cell voltage off the front of the battery diagnoses the problem in 2 minutes. The guy without the screen is digging for a laptop cable. I spent enough 2 in the morning service calls staring at dead equipment with no display to tell you which one I'd rather be. If $100 doesn't sting, take the screen. Number 9. The SOLIX 48V100. Another 5.12 kilowatt-hour rack battery, but with 2 things nobody else on this list offers together. First, the honest cycle rating. SOLIX publishes 80% capacity retention after 4,000 cycles at 100% depth of discharge, full drain, every time. Ease off to 80% depth of discharge, and the same cells test past 7,000 cycles. I respect a company that rates the battery at full abuse instead of dressing the number up. Second, and this is the part I love, the case opens. The SOLIX is user serviceable with a removable cover, a replaceable battery management system, and replaceable cells. Almost every other battery in this countdown is glued and sealed like a smartphone. This one is built like the old machines, the ones you fix instead of throw away. It runs around $1,500 with a 10-year warranty. If your worry is owning a 500-pound paperweight in year 12, this is the battery that answers it, and the clock was already ticking on the biggest name in this countdown. It just couldn't hear it yet. We'll get there. Number 8. The Ruixu Lithium 216, spelled Ruixu. This one is a wall-mounted 16 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery using the newer 314 amp-hour cells, outdoor rated, with wheels built into the cabinet, selling for around $3,400. That works out near $210 per kilowatt-hour, right at the hardware floor I mentioned up top. Now for the honest hedge, because Ruixu advertises 9,500 cycles, and I want you to hear that number the right way. That is a laboratory cell rating under ideal conditions, not a promise about the assembled battery on your wall in a Texas summer. Nobody has run one of these for 26 years because they haven't existed that long. What I can tell you is that the cells are lithium iron phosphate, the certifications check out, and the biggest independent battery reviewers in the do-it-yourself space have torn these down and come away impressed. Treat the real-world expectation as several thousand cycles, same as the rest of this list, and price it accordingly. At $210 per kilowatt-hour, it still clears the bar with room to spare. Number 7. The Fortress Power eVault Max, an 18.5 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery in a single floor standing cabinet, the biggest single unit in this countdown. The warranty runs 10 years or 6,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge, and the cabinet stacks with more units up to 370 kilowatt hours if you're running a farm or a shop. 2 things earn Fortress its slot here. Capacity per box, because one eVault Max covers a fridge, freezer, well pump, furnace blower, and lights through a multi-day outage without load juggling. And the company itself, headquartered in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, with American phone support and a dealer network that actually answers. This is a professional installed battery, sold through installers and paired with a separate inverter, so your final price depends heavily on the quote, and that's exactly where you apply everything in this video. Get the hardware line item in writing, separate from labor. An 18 kilowatt-hour battery hiding inside a lump sum quote is how a fair deal quietly becomes a bad one. So no, not a detail to skip. For a while, things in this industry actually seemed simple. One battery, one honest price. That didn't last. Which brings us to the battery I'd put on my own wall. Number 6. The EG4 PowerPro WallMount All-Weather. And this is the strongest value verdict in the entire countdown. 14.3 kilowatt-hours of lithium iron phosphate in a sealed, outdoor-rated, self-heating wall cabinet rated at more than 8,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge, backed by a 10-year warranty and a lifetime throughput figure of 82.6 megawatt-hours. It delivers 10 kilowatts of continuous power with surge capacity above 15 kilowatts for motor starts, so a well pump or a heat pump does not scare it. Street price around $3,150. Do the division and you are near $220 per kilowatt hour for a battery that is UL9540, listed as a full system when paired with EG4's 18 kilowatt peak inverter. That listing matters more than people realize because plenty of jurisdictions and insurance companies now ask for it before they will pass a permit. Now the safety beat, and it's not optional. This battery hardwires into your electrical system, and that work belongs to a licensed electrician with a permit to local code, full stop. Not because you're not capable, but because a battery this size done wrong endangers your family and voids everything, warranty and homeowner's policy alike. Price a legitimate install and you're still all in for a fraction of the big brand quotes. Compare that against $17,500 for 15 kilowatt hours and the frustration writes itself. If this countdown is saving you from a bad quote, hit subscribe. I do honest numbers on backup power every week. No affiliate math bending the verdicts. Alright, here's where things get interesting. Up to this point, the budget brands have been running the table. That's about to flip because the top 5 is where the famous names live. The famous names are where the markup gets creative, and the number 1 slot is going to turn what you think you know about the biggest name in batteries on its head. Number 5. The Enphase IQ Battery 5P. On paper, this is the best warranty in residential storage, 15 years or 6,000 cycles, whichever comes first, on a 5 kilowatt-hour lithium iron phosphate module with 3.84 kilowatts of continuous output. The engineering is genuinely excellent, 96% round-trip efficiency on the direct current side, grid-forming microinverters built into the case, no fans, no moving parts. So why is it sitting at number 5? Because installed pricing runs around $8,500 for that single 5 kilowatt-hour unit. That's $1,700 per kilowatt-hour, the highest cost per stored kilowatt hour of anything in this countdown, roughly 8 times the hardware floor. Here's my honest verdict, and it comes with friction. If you already have Enphase microinverters on your roof, the 5P is worth every dollar. One app, one ecosystem, one support call, and a warranty that outlives everything else here. If you don't have Enphase on the roof, you are paying a premium for an ecosystem you're not in, and the accountant in your head should be crying. Same battery, 2 completely different verdicts, and any review that won't say so is selling you something. Number 4. The FranklinWH aPower 2. 15 kilowatt hours of lithium iron phosphate, 10 kilowatts of continuous output, strong surge capacity for compressor starts, and a 15-year warranty backed by a 60 megawatt-hour throughput guarantee. Run the numbers on that guarantee, 60,000 kilowatt hours through a 15 kilowatt-hour battery, and Franklin is standing behind roughly 4,000 full cycles in writing, which is a stronger written promise than most of the industry makes. The hardware deserves its reputation, and the A-gate controller that comes with it manages circuits during an outage better than almost anything on the market, so the hardware earns its keep. The invoice is another matter. Installed quotes for a single aPower 2 system commonly land between $16,000 and $19,000, and that $17,500 quote from the top of this video was for exactly this class of system. Over $1,000 per kilowatt hour installed for cells that cost a fraction of that. If you want the Franklin, want it with open eyes, get 3 quotes, and make every installer break out hardware, labor, and permit as separate lines. Watching them squirm at that request tells you everything, and if that spread sounds bad, keep watching. Number 3. The Tesla Powerwall 3 expansion unit, and this is the sleeper value hiding inside the most famous battery brand on earth. Tesla could have stopped at selling full-price Powerwalls. They didn't. The expansion is a 13.5 kilowatt hours lithium iron phosphate pack that bolts onto an existing Powerwall 3 and rides its inverter. Because it carries no electronics of its own, it sells for about $5,900. That's roughly $440 per kilowatt hour of professionally installed, name brand, warranted storage, the cheapest installed kilowatt hours in this entire countdown by a wide margin. That's not a typo, by the way. The Tesla badge, the 10-year warranty, and a per kilowatt hour price that undercuts half the do-it-yourself market once you count what an inverter costs. The honest caveats. It requires a Powerwall 3 already on the wall, it adds storage but zero additional power output, and one host unit maxes out at 3 expansions for 54 kilowatt hours total. So it can't be your first battery, but if you're quoted a second full Powerwall when what you actually need is more runtime, not more output, this is the do this instead answer that saves you thousands. Most installers will not volunteer it, now you know to ask. Number 2. The EG4 LifePower 4 V2, the cheapest verified kilowatt hours in this whole countdown. 5.12 kilowatt hours of lithium iron phosphate in the standard server rack format, rated at over 6,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge, 10-year warranty, UL recognized cells, and street pricing that starts around $1,200. That is roughly $235 per kilowatt hour. Stack 6 of them in a wheeled rack cabinet and you are holding 30 kilowatt hours, more storage than 2 Powerwalls for around $8,000 in batteries. This is the unit that quietly built the entire budget home storage market in America, and owner forums are full of people running walls of these things year after year without drama. The trade-offs are the honest ones. No touchscreen, no outdoor rating, no heater, indoors only, and it needs an inverter and a licensed electrician to become a backup system rather than a very heavy shelf ornament. But dollar for dollar, cycle for cycle, nothing on this list buys stored energy cheaper. Which raises the obvious question. If the budget battery is this good, how does anything justify a premium? Funny you should ask, because number 1 is the brand everybody assumes is the rip-off. Number 1. The Tesla Powerwall 3, and I saved it for last because this is the verdict that surprises people. The Powerwall carries the reputation of an overpriced status symbol, the granite countertop of batteries. The actual hardware tells a different story. 13.5 kilowatt hours of usable lithium iron phosphate storage, 11.5 kilowatts of continuous output, enough to run most homes whole including central air without load shedding, and a built-in solar inverter that replaces a separate $2,000 box. Tesla doesn't publish a cycle number. They do something better. The 10-year warranty guarantees 70% capacity with unlimited cycles for solar self-use, and unlimited is a word no cycle count warranty on this list can match. The unit itself sells for around $9,300 to $10,500, roughly $700 per kilowatt hour with the inverter thrown in, which is fair. Then the quotes arrive. The same box gets installed for $8,500 in one market and $16,500 in another. People thought they had the full picture on Tesla pricing. They were wrong, because the spread between those two installs is pure local markup on identical hardware. Months later, a second pattern surfaced in owner forums, homeowners comparing invoices and finding $5,000 differences for the same one-day job. The Powerwall isn't the rip-off, it's the hostage. Shop the installer as hard as you shopped the battery. So let's go back to that $17,500 quote from the top of the video, except now you can read it the way I do. Somewhere inside that number is a few $1,000s of honest lithium iron phosphate, rated for more cycles than most marriages, and wrapped around it is everything else. In 2026, with the federal credit gone and tariffs leaning on prices, the battery hardware is the best it has ever been, and the quote sheet is the most dangerous it has ever been. Every unit in this countdown earns its money. Your job is just to make sure the money goes to the battery. Get the line items, get 3 quotes, use a licensed electrician, pull the permit, and follow your local code. And if this saved you from signing something you'd regret, pass it along to the neighbor with the installer's truck in the driveway. I'm Cal Watts. Keep the lights on.